Hi, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be changing the spark plugs on the Peugeot 206. This is a 1.6 litre engine. Right, in order to get access to the spark plugs, first of all we need to remove this cover, then we need to remove the coil pack. To remove this cover we need a Torx, it's a T20. And it should just lift off. So on here we have the coil pack, so we need to remove these hoses in order to get access to the coil pack, and these just clip off. This one's a bit more stubborn. So and this is a coil pack we need to remove, and to remove it we need to undo, and again that T20 Torx screws. There's one there, 2, 3 and 4, plus we have to disconnect this connector here. In order to remove this connector there's a metal clip which we need to remove, and it just slots out like that, and then we can push down on the connector and that's the connector removed. Right, so the next step is to remove the coil pack. And then we just need to lift gently, and there we have the coil pack. Here you can see the coil pack's been removed, and there are the spark plugs in their respective holes. Now in order to remove the spark plugs, it's a 10mm spark plug socket, which is this one here, and we just slot that down, make sure it locates, and then we can undo the spark plug and remove it. One other thing while I'm here, you've probably noticed that this pipe has been broken, and it must have been broken some time, because as you can see over here there's quite a lot of oil residue, and this spark plug chamber here was quite full of oil, and that brings us to another problem with this car. It's constantly showing an anti-pollution fault. Now this broken pipe, which is a breather and it goes into the air intake there, could be the cause of the anti-pollution fault. So obviously we've got to get another one of these pipes here, so I'll have to order one of those this afternoon and refit it and see if that affects the warning. So I'll take all these spark plugs out, and then we'll refit the new ones. So we'll go ahead and remove these spark plugs. Actually, I think I need slightly longer extension, and that one didn't feel it was in very tight, to be honest. And there we go. Although there's all around the thread, it certainly hasn't got into the chamber, and the colour of the plug doesn't look that bad. Anyway, we'll remove the rest and see what those are like. Yes, that's fine. Okay, we've removed the plugs from the car now, so we'll have a look at the state of the plugs and look at the tips to see what colour they are, and that will tell us how well the engine's performing. And I happened to find this thing called a plugometer, which was issued by Champion as an advertising ploy for their spark plugs, and it gives you a rundown of whether your plugs or your engine is running normally, whether they're worn, whether your engine's oily, they're burnt, or petrol failed. So in our case, if we look at that, it's a nice sort of peach colour, and that is exactly what we've got. So from that we can conclude that our engine's running fine. So these are the new spark plugs that we're going to fit, and first of all we check that the gap is right. These days they're set at the factory, but always double check them. And the gap is supposed to be 0.9 millimeters, which is equivalent to 36 thou in proper money. Yeah, there you go. And it should just slide with some resistance, so that's the proper gap. I've checked all the rest and they're all fine as well. So to be on the safe side, when you're putting the spark plugs in, I always use a piece of rubber hose which slots over the end of the spark plug like that. And with this method you don't run the risk of cross threading, so just slot it in there, get it started and twist away until it stops. There you go, some resistance there. Just pull the piece of rubber off. And then just snip it up. Like so. And then we can just slot the coil pack back on. Just get it seated. And it's just a matter of tightening all the Torx screws back up. I just need to get these Torx bolts located in the holes. That's fine. There's one again. And finally this one. And then once we know they're all located and going into the respective holes, then we'll just tighten them up. So that's on tight. One thing I forgot to mention is when you're actually tightening the spark plugs up with the socket, just remember to just nip them up. There is a torque setting which I'll look at the manual and I'll put up here, but normally when I've been doing it on cars in the past, you just nip it up, and you don't want to do it up as tight as you can, because that can lead to rather nasty problems, especially in an aluminium head. So yeah, let's just clip this connector back on under here. Now, I wasn't going to put this cover on, but for the sake of completeness, the reason being I've got to replace this hose. But anyway, once you've finished tightening your coil pack up, replace the cover. Just hold this one. So there we are. That is essentially how to change your spark plugs